The wind carried a whisper so faint John Harwood almost thought he imagined it. But when he turned, there she was, kneeling in the dust, clutching a torn blanket, eyes wide with fear. "Please cover me," she begged. That's when John let his sack fall to the dirt and stepped forward, knowing whatever came next could change everything. The sun hung low over the ridge, spilling golden light across the open land. John Harwood had spent the day in town, stocking up on feed, salt, and a few tools for the ranch. His burlap sack was heavy against his shoulder, each step crunching against the dry earth. He was thinking about getting home before dark when he heard it, so faint he almost missed it. A whisper, "Please cover me." He stopped, the sound rolling through his mind like a ghost. He scanned the long stretch of dirt road, the musquite brush, the shadows under the leaning fence posts. Then he saw her, half hidden near the edge of a fallen barn. A young woman knelt in the dust, clutching a torn blanket around her shoulders. Her hair was tangled, her face drawn pale as the moon, eyes wide and pleading. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. John's sack slipped from his shoulder and landed in the dirt with a dull thud. His hand hovered near his coat where his revolver rested. Not because he meant her harm, but because this kind of scene in the frontier usually came with danger not far behind. "You hurt?" he asked, voice low, cautious. She nodded once, then shook her head as if she couldn't decide. "They're looking for me," she whispered, glancing toward the hills. "If they see me," her voice cracked. "Please, just cover me." John scanned the horizon. Nothing yet, but his gut told him trouble was close. The air carried a kind of stillness that only came before a storm, or before men with bad intentions rode in. Without another word, he stepped forward, pulling his coat from his shoulders and draping it over her. The fabric nearly swallowed her whole. "Come on," he said, extending his hand. "You're not staying out here." She hesitated, then gripped his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. He pulled her to her feet, steadying her as she swayed. "Name's John Harwood," he said as they started toward the trail leading to his ranch. "Clara," she murmured, her voice barely louder than the wind. It wasn't until they reached the main road that he heard it, the distant thundering of hooves. Clara froze, her breath catching. "They are here," she whispered. John tightened his jaw. Then we walked faster, but the riders were coming hard, and soon dust rose on the horizon. John led Clara into the cover of a rocky outcrop, pulling her close so the shadows swallowed them. The riders came into view, 3 men, rough-faced with rifles slung across their backs. They slowed near the spot where John had first found her, scanning the ground. One of them dismounted, crouched, and studied the date. John could see the glint of iron in the man's hand. "They'll follow the tracks," Clara whispered. "They always do." John's mind raced. The nearest shortcut to his ranch meant cutting through the Aoyo, but it was risky terrain. Still, staying put was worse. He waited until the riders moved farther down the road, then tugged her along. We moved now. The Aoyo was narrow, the walls high, and the path uneven. Twice Clara stumbled, and each time he caught her before she fell. She was light, too light, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. By the time they reached the other side, the sky was bleeding into twilight. John's ranch house stood alone against the horizon, a warm glow spilling from a window. Inside, he settled her by the fire, pouring water into a tin cup and handing it to her. She drank like a person who'd been wandering the desert. "You going to tell me what's going on?" he asked. Clara's eyes darted to the door, then back to him. "I was supposed to marry a man in Dry Creek," she began, voice trembling. "But when I got there, he wasn't what he said. He locked me in a room, said I was his property now." She gripped the blanket tighter. "I escaped 3 nights ago. Been running since." John's jaw hardened. He'd heard stories like this before, but each one hit the same way. In the gut, like a punch he couldn't block. "They ain't going to take you back," he said firmly. "Not while you're under my roof." She looked at him as if she wanted to believe that, but fear still lingered in her eyes. The rest of the night was quiet, but John didn't sleep much. He kept the lantern low and the rifle close. At dawn, the sound of hooves came again. Clara's face went pale. John stood, moved to the door, and stepped outside. The same 3 riders approached, their eyes narrowing when they saw him. "You seen a girl come through here?" One called out. His voice was like gravel. John's gaze was steady. Can't say I have. And if I had, I wouldn't be telling you. The man's mouth curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Careful, friend. You might find yourself on the wrong end of trouble. John took one slow step forward. I've seen trouble. I'm still here. For a long moment, the only sound was a wind over the grass. Then the riders turned their horses and left, dust trailing behind them. When John stepped back inside, Clara was still by the fire, eyes wide. They had gone, he said. For now. She exhaled, a shaky smile tugging at her lips. Thank you. John picked up the sack he dropped the day before, setting it on the table. You're safe here, he said, and I'll keep it that way. She nodded, and for the first time since he'd found her, she looked like she believed it. Outside, the horizon was clear, but John knew men like that didn't give up easy. He also knew they'd have to go through him first, and that was a fight he was more than ready for. John had thought the trouble might fade with the sunrise. He was wrong. By the second morning, Clara was moving around the ranch house with a little more strength, helping herself to coffee, and even asking about the horses. But the way she kept glancing out the window told him she hadn't stopped listening for trouble. And trouble didn't take long to find them. Just past noon, John spotted dust rising again on the far ridge. This time the riders weren't coming. Slow. They were bearing down fast, and their horses were feared. They found us, Clara whispered, her hand tightening on the edge of the table. John moved to the rifle rack, taking down his Winchester. Get in the root cellar, he said calmly. You will be safe there. I don't want to hide, she said, her voice trembling but defiant. You're not hiding, John told her. You're surviving. Reluctantly, she slipped into the cellar. As John barred the door and stepped onto the porch, the riders pulled up hard in front of the house. The one in the lead, the same man from before, leaned forward in his saddle. You lied to me, Harwood. He said you asked her wrong.